Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is First Friday Spirit Talk. I'm Christopher Mitchell, and I'll be your host today. We're going to open up with a segment that we like to call Chris's Astrocast, where we explore some of the current energies that are going on through the lens of astrology. And I thought since we're doing a spring 2022 energy sort of episode today, I would just kind of paint a picture of some of what I see going on right now. We got a couple different dynamics that are all weaving into the same thing. And so, first of all, it's eclipse season, which happens twice a year, where we get a couple of eclipses a couple weeks apart. And these can be heightened and impactful times where the energy just can be a little more salient, a little more significant. Turning points happen, meaningful things come to the fore and get transmuted and seen and worked with to open up and unlock kind of major doors in our life experience potentially. And so inherently, these gateways, these eclipse windows, can activate a lot, and they activate different things depending on where they're landing in all of our different charts. For me, it's in the 11th house. For you, it might be in the 8th house. It hits us all differently, but we're all together moving through a time with heightened meaning. And combined with that is, so it's Taurus season right now. I'm going to talk about the first three signs of astrology is what I'm going to do. You have Aries as the first sign, Taurus as the second sign, and Gemini as the third sign of the zodiac. And the interesting thing about the progression between astrological signs is that though they come one right after the other, they don't necessarily seamlessly blend into each other the way that April blends into May, blends into June. There's a bit of a hard shift that happens in between these energies. Aries starts, it's the energy of birth. It just bursts onto the scene, it acts impulsively, it does things without thinking, and it relates in this very fiery, instinctual way. And then when energy shifts from Aries to Taurus, it goes from being full of energy and just wanting to start things to wanting to slow down, ground, simplify, and focus on only what's essential and be in the body, go yin instead of yang, right? Into the self instead of out into the world. And then the energy shifts from Taurus to Gemini. And again, there's a hard shift from embodied, slow, step by step into the Gemini curiosity and the high energy tendency to want to gather all the different things possible in curiosity, fill our space with new information, new data, talk and share perspectives. It's very busy compared to the more simple, grounded Taurus. And we have an array of planets that are spread between these three different signs. Right now, it is predominantly Taurus season, which means that the sun is in the sign of Taurus. So that's the headliner in a way, right? Like it is Taurus season. That's where the big flashlight in the sky, the sun, is pointing. Taurus themes. We're working on simplifying, taking things one at a time, figuring out what's essential and working on things step by step. But Venus, the planet of how we relate and what we like, is just moved into Aries. And so even though we want to be grounded and there's a focus on being grounded and simplified, there's also all of a sudden we're relating in a very fiery, kind of instinctual, impulsive way that's sometimes we're talking or reacting or responding or whatever before we have a chance to think about it. And similarly, Mercury, the planet of communication and thought, is in Gemini, and it's zipping all over the place, interested in stuff, finding new Netflix shows to watch, talking to people all over the place left and right, and being busy. And in the middle is kind of Sun and Taurus saying, right, but I still want to be in my body. I still wanted to clear my space. I still wanted to make this all more efficient. And so we have to kind of work with these different themes that are overlaying. It's never just one thing in astrology, and it changes all the time. And so none of it's wrong, none of it's invalid. Venus is doing what Venus does, Mercury is doing what Mercury does, Taurus is doing what the sun in Taurus is doing what the sun in Taurus does. So we see all these different energies that are running through our space and we work with them. How can I have a busy Gemini mind while also respecting keeping my space simple and only taking on what's relevant for me? How can I have a fiery, free relating style while also sticking true to my values and showing up the way that I want to show up? When planets stretch us between different energies like this, it's to stretch our consciousness so that we can learn to work with different energies and still kind of hold it all. So all of that's happening right now while eclipse season goes on, which means that we're working with these energies in a very impactful way. And I think that probably sets the stage pretty well for a conversation about what's unfolding in our collective right now. So just keeping in mind that that's kind of the shape of it for the next couple of weeks here. It's going to work in all of our charts differently, but there is a kind of working with the blending of these three different primary archetypes and three different parts of self. So with that, that's the Astrocast for May. And now let me introduce you to the rest of the show. This is First Friday Spirit Talk, where we get together on the first Friday of every month to talk about different spiritual and metaphysical topics in depth. I'm your host and astrologer, Christopher Mitchell, and these are two of my favorite psychic and spiritual teachers, Reverend Ginny Brown and Scout Bartlett. Today, we're going to be talking about the energy of spring 2022, what's going on in our collective, and we're also going to be digging in a little bit to the idea of energetic clutter and how our spaces get full of things and how we can work with releasing that. So to get started, because it's a little bit of a different format than usual, we're maybe going to be a little more conversational here as we talk about our experience of the current energy. I'm just going to pass it over to Scout and then Jenny to talk about what they're seeing and noticing in collective trends right now and how we can work with that energy as they see it. Scout?
I would refer to this particular spring as being toothpaste spring, in that a whole lot of people the best part about having a practice with clients is that that I get to see in my clients whether the stuff that's going on is just my own nuts craziness or whether it's actually the energetic flow that's going on, because I have a backdrop of a gazillion different people I talk to every week. And so I'm referring to this as toothpaste spring, because what I'm noticing is that what I'm noticing is lots and lots of people are experiencing feeling like some aspect of their life, whether it's their marriage, their partnership, that they're single, whether it's their career direction, their path, whether it's their boss, their workplace, the company they work for, or even just whether or not it's way too late and they should have remodeled their kitchen 6 years ago. But they're feeling an intense pressure on something, some aspect, or maybe even multiple aspects of life that's squishing and squishing and squishing until the upside of that is that we are seeing that the toothpaste squirts out of the tube. We are seeing that they're getting squished and squished and squished, or feeling squished and squished and squished on a topic, on an area of life, and then there's a breakthrough on the other side. There's a place where they can actually pop it through. I just worked with a client, and what we did was recognize that the thing that's driving her crazy in the business that she's building is that she's caring too much. And we had to redefine the word caring, because in her world, caring had meant making sure that every single person is taken care of energetically. So she's feeding energy to everybody that works in the business, everybody that's a vendor to the business, everybody that's a customer to the business, everybody that's a potential investor to the business. And we had to unhook all of that to recognize that she had to redo that to be doing her energy from in the center of her, radiating that light out rather than being octopus style extended out, trying to give a tentacle to everybody to be feeding energy. That was a breakthrough for her, because she did something else where she actually saw it, and we were able to use that. A breakthrough of, not I need to get apathetic, but I need to be not extended out. And I think that's the breakthrough that I'm seeing pretty much for everybody, that whichever area of life, even if it's your kitchen remodel, whichever area of life that you're finding you're being the toothpaste on, it really is a whole place of allowing yourself to let go of everything you've been extended out to, trying to carry along, and simply bring yourself back to you being present and being your own glowing light in the midst of what you're doing and what your life is presenting you. Go from there, Ginny.
Yeah.
Oh, that was easy.
I notice in Taurus season, one of the big themes that come up is peace, like looking to find a sense of peace. And what I've been noticing in the collective and client work and in myself is what stands in the way of me feeling peaceful. And that's been kind of calling up old patterns, having me look at places where, I've ignored something that's been festering, or, helping clients kind of clear out their closet, so to speak, around, old patterns or things that, just get put to the back burner. And so noticing a lot of kind of, if this is the desire, if this is a big part of the intention of Taurus season, is to find a sense of peacefulness and ease, what stands in the way of that? And a lot of times it's the parts of our psyche or the parts of, our childhood or experiences, et cetera, that we have left, maybe we have some kind of like recognition of what needs to change in that area, or we have a little insight, but we haven't done the work around it. And so I feel like there's a call to action right now around getting to a place that encourages a pathway of peace. And that's what I've been seeing, Chris.
Yeah, I'm definitely noticing that in my experience as well. And there's like the dynamic between the desire for peace, but and this is I think why we are picking kind of intuitively energetic clutter and spring cleaning as a theme, is we can sense that possibility of peace and empowerment, but still have a process to let go of what's keeping us from it. And this is the Scorpio Taurus axis that's being lit up by the eclipses and by the nodes for the next year and a half. The dynamic between all the stuff we hold on to psychologically that can cause chaos and always stir and churn up, versus the simple disconnected presence, disconnected in a positive sense, like presence of Taurus. And we are feeling this dynamic with this eclipse season. And I think it can be important to, just like we honor the stretching out between the different signs, to honor that we're in a temporal process of working through the, yes, I sense that peace is possible, and there's parts of me that are not ready to relax and melt into it yet. We're doing it. Maybe we can hurry it along, not hurry it along, but maybe we can help ourselves along, but we're in a process, and etc. And yeah, I guess I do want to toss it back to you about that. Like, as we work towards peace, but we notice all the ways that what's still cluttering the closet, what's still cluttering our psyche, how do we have compassion for the process and help ourselves through it, rather than just feeling like we're stuck?
I think there's a few ways to get there. Freedom, to me, the more you can become more free by taking ownership and responsibility for your cause and effect in the world. Like in shamanic principle, you are both. You are both the cause and you are both the effect of everything that happens. And a lot of times we have a hard time staying egoically inside that space because of kind of the chain reaction that can have, for better or for worse. And so ownership, to me, the more we step into ownership, and this is a big part of my practice, is we become more free along the way. And with more freedom becomes an expanded sense of self, expanded sense of what you are, of what you create, and kind of helps you to evolve towards a place that's more peaceful. Because when you can understand, that level of interconnectedness, you can be at peace with cause and effect. You can kind of sit in a place of not being swayed so emotionally by a situation and kind of wait for the outcome. A teacher, I recently just heard this quote and I loved it. And they said to turn your inner critic into your advocate. Like, what would happen there? And so that's something I'm toying around with and playing with, is like, how can that critical side actually become a voice in the positive redirection? And I think that can be really compassionate, because typically when we've acted from a place and that some of that energy we're holding on to was we were acting out of innocence. And we hold on to judgment, or we hold on to the situation because we want to learn from it. But the critic is just pointing out all the areas that we've already learned, or that we're trying to integrate, and it can feel very damning. So if we turn that towards, we have that critical side turn into more of an advocate. I'm curious how that would shape our outer experience and give us ownership of any sort of trauma that we feel like we've endured or caused, and be more of the kind of the educated aftermath of a situation. So I'm really toying with that relationship in myself right now, and like how to kind of help clients and help people cross over that bridge alongside me.
This is in astrology, when you talk about the planet Saturn, which has to do with responsibility, and kind of, it can be associated with boundaries and karma and criticism at its lower vibration or lower expression. It can show up as, but what it really is it's a father archetype, it's a teacher archetype, and the way, like, you want to turn your inner critic, your inner Saturn, from the abusive coach or the teacher that yells at you to the one who's trying to help inspire you and along the way, that sees your potential and is holding space for everything you could be, but in a kind of a loving inner authority, a loving inner, not criticism, but teacher, rather than a hard rock against ourselves.
That's great.
Scout, do you want to, anywhere you're feeling called to go on all this?
That subconscious voicing in our mind that goes round and round and round in loops, it's a key piece to retrain that subconscious voice in your mind so that it's actually on your side, rather than going in pre-created imprints, pre-created moments in life that made an impression, that left an impression, that literally left an impression in your energy field. Rather than letting those subconscious mind chatter just run, it really is a retraining process. Now, the tricky part is it's not a process of then always watching your internal so that you're not being present, but it is a process of noticing when that internal mind chatter is running in a direction that's a critique or an undercut to you rather than being on your side, and actually interrupting those thought loops and shifting them into a moment, a memory, a place in time where you felt good, where you felt solid, where you felt supported. Literally making that interrupt and giving that new potential outcome to this repeating, looping thought that I've referred to before as marbles in the jar going round and round and round. Retraining your subconscious mind to be on your side is a huge and fabulous process, and it's a day-to-day ongoing process of catch it when it's busy griping at you, interrupt it, and regroove it to go to a different outcome.
I think it's in session yesterday with me and Scout, you used the words like giving the marbles a way out, like a pathway to leave the jar, so that they don't get stuck in there forever. And that's I think the thought interrupts you're talking about, but also all the ways that we can work with stuck energy, be it self-soothing or solution seeking or reprogramming, repatterning our beliefs and impressions. It's about getting letting that energy find a way out of being stuck, right?
I would always throw a tiny bit of caution that the same mind that holds the container that we're referring to as a jar with marbles, the same mind that holds a container will always offer you solutions to that container that are based in the same mind that holds the container. So I'm a little bit cautious about thinking your way through them, because most of the time what you end up doing is exploring all of the thoughts that support the walls of the container inside your mind. It's literally however you do it, whether you notice your mind's griping at you so you get up and stretch, or whether you notice your mind's griping at you so you make yourself instead go take a walk and focus in the walk, or make yourself meditate, or my shortcut is always choosing an uplifting thought and doing an interrupt and shift thought change. So that we're interrupting the loop as opposed to examining the loop with the same thinking that created it. Thank you, Einstein. A side piece, just to jump topic for a moment. Guidance has been talking to me about this particular series of events that are going on in the world for a while. They've been prepping me. And things that they described, just to give you some comfort, was that we would see incredible duality, that we would see large organizations attempting to create more pressure to either draw more geographic turf if they're a government, or to draw more people turf if they're a belief system. That we'd be seeing this duality, we'd be seeing groups trying to gain more power and more structure and more control, not because they care about the thing they're controlling, but because they care about demonstrating that they have the ability to control it. How do I gain power? I show that I have votes. Does it matter what those votes were about? Not at all. Does it matter whether those people voting cared about the thing they voted about? Not at all. How do I gain power in the PTA? How do I gain power in my community? How do I gain power on the school board? How do I gain power in my community, my state, my county, my nation, my part of the globe? I demonstrate that I can get people to do the thing I wanted them to do and to support the thing I wanted them to support. Rarely is it about the thing. It's only about demonstrating that I have that much sway, so don't mess with me. Whew, I just barely caught that word and corrected it.
We almost had that word in the title of today's episode.
True.
When we talked about potential themes for May, one of the propositions was why the heck is everything going sideways right now? And I think this actually connects into what we're talking about right here about all the seeming intense polarity or the stuff that's coming up on our screens as we look out at the world is heightening, right? And this tracks with the nodal eclipse, scorpionic, Taurian themes that I was talking about astrologically, is all this stuff that's churned up right now for us collectively during this time of awakening. How do we choose to see it when we look out at all of these events unfolding? And I've found in my personal practice that seeing it all as detoxification and as a way, like the seeming conflict and the intense polarization, as a way for things to come to light and be processed and digested collectively, that anything that's coming up is coming up to help rather than to show a world on fire, is a really key switch for me. So that when I see something going on in, well, I'll say that for the United States this year, we are going through, you might have seen this on social media or in an article or whatever, but we're going through a Pluto return in the United States. You might have heard of a Saturn return. It happens when you're about 30 years old, when Saturn goes all the way around back to where it started in your birth chart. The United States is having a Pluto return, where the United States started with Pluto at 27 degrees of Capricorn, and 250 years later, for the first time in the history of the country, Pluto is back where it started, asking deep questions about what is power, like what's under the surface that's corrupt, what needs to be transformed and reborn. And so this is an extremely, the last couple years, COVID was a part of this, politics have been a part of this, and the next couple years fading out. Everything we're seeing about what is power, what is under the surface running things, what is corrupt, what needs to be drained and healed and brought to the light and transmuted. It seems like everything's going wrong, but it's actually a part of a deep transmutive healing process of seeing everything that needs to be seen to begin a new cycle. And
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 we
so
do have to remember that democracy, vote by the people, when Pluto was pushing us in place, was an experiment and is an experiment. So I'll simply say to everybody, before that, it was either kings, autocrats, or dictators. That was the style. That was the structure. And you can see there's a whole lot of people that have been pretty bummed out that they're not getting to be king, autocrat, or dictator. So the side note I'll make, please, everybody, if you think democracy is a good idea, participate. I don't care if you protest, but for goodness sakes, you and every friend you know, get yourself registered and overcome whatever hurdles get put in your way to vote. Please. Please, very much please. And if it's your school board, take a moment to look into who's running for your school board. It turns out those are important. Ooh, I almost just launched on a whole dissertation there. I'm going to stop right there.
All
got
this,
one in the wings too, but I want to pass it over to Ginny.
yeah, there's a, when it comes to power dynamics and it comes to these issues that we've seen over the past 2 years, whether it's uh, really to find a place of peace. I feel like we're trying to kind of align to our constitutional outline that, and to really kind of come to a place where all persons were created equal, and to have our laws reflect as such. And it takes this shadow period, it takes all this energy to bring us into consciousness of where we're lacking in equality. And in my personal opinion and experience, uh, what's happening for women right now with the potential of Roe versus Wade being overturned and all of that is it highlights kind of the one of the bigger shifts that we need to be looking at as a collective consciousness.
And there's a second piece under that, that what we're looking at also is that currently we're seeing a potential of what used to be the we are politically independent part of our government, the Supreme Court, becoming a political appendage. And that's every bit as scary.
Right. There's so much about our government, about democracy itself, that needs to come into balance, as well as, when you look at race and gender and the ways that people are treated in this country in any sort of like varying degree, we're feeling these huge wobbles because it's been so out of balance. And, it's something that we're being forced to look at and, kind of go through the fear of losing rights, go through the fear of what this all means to us individually, spiritually, mentally, collectively, so that we, take stock, look for it, vote about it, get out there and make a stance around it. And so, I think it's an important time to be as active as you can stay mentally healthy.
And that's part of the themes of Taurus, is it causing us to look at what do we really value. And sometimes the scorpionic fear of loss of something is how we can identify and realize what really is important and essential to us.
Mhm.
Let's pick up on all this after our midpoint meditation, because we're here now at 12:30, and halfway through every First Friday Spirit Talk, we turn it over to Ginny and Scout, alternating months, for a meditation to get aligned and drop in. So this month it's Ginny's turn, and I'll give it over to you to guide us through this experience.
It's true. Ginny gets the odd months.
The yin months, actually,
Look
in
at that.
astrologically.
How perfect. So I invite everyone just to get comfortable in your chair and close your eyes, please. And together, let's just take a nice big deep breath in and exhale. And take a moment to say hello to yourself. by saying your full name to yourself a few times. And listen for the way that you answer back. Maybe it's a voice, a feeling, or a knowing. And I invite you to travel today to a memory of a place when you were young. You were safe, you were content, and you were alone. And notice what you're doing. Maybe you're reading a book, playing with Legos, or sitting quietly in the car. Invite yourself to tap into that moment of peace, of contentment, of joy. And ask yourself, when is the last time, as an adult, I've participated in this way? Ask that inner child if they have a message or a gift for you that you could bring back to support you in maintaining more of this feeling now. I invite you to take that gift. Take a nice big deep breath in and return to the room we're in. And welcome back. A regular exercise in my practice is to, as adults, we tend to lose sight of some of the creativity that we had as children and some of the ways that we found play and peace. And I encourage everyone, if they like, after the show today, to think of 10 things you used to do as a child. For me, it was climbing trees, riding bikes, drawing, playing in dirt. And I do those things, as many of those things as I can in a day. Not only to connect with my younger self, but for the simplicity of joy and peacefulness that comes from those kind of actions.
I like the idea of the abundant adult cultivated experience those things. Like instead of playing in the mud, you've set up one of those little Zen gardens for yourself and you rake it daily or something. But you still bring that feeling into your space. It's very, very Taurian. I like that. Ginny has a Taurus moon.
Can't be
Lucky,
stopped.
lucky duck, the soul lottery.
I worked hard for that, Chris.
That's not luck. That's heavily induced past life influences.
Exactly. That was another Taurus joke about hard work. But anyway.
So I got a piece brewing here from what we were talking about before the meditation that I think is really interesting. And it's, there's this general discussion, right, about being the change that we want to see, that what we give is what we receive, that we heal the world by healing ourselves. And Scout's talking about the importance of voting and getting over whatever boundaries are put in the way. And that what comes up for me is that that also applies to our own internal boundaries, internal resistance, that and that this is not just about voting democratically in a particular election, but it's about that everything we do, everything we choose is an energetic vote for the world that we want to create. And that working through our points of resistance or our traumas or whatever gets in the way of us voting the way that we most want to vote, that's most actually aligned with our values around food or relationship or whatever, like that can be the real work of finding our ways to a healed and balanced world together, is finding ways to align ourselves with participating and voting in the way that is from our purest, highest self.
I really want to jump in on that one, Chris, real quick. So I'll grab this one, Ginny, and then I'll hand it over to you, and you can soften it up. The focus in any given lifetime is bringing forward the essence of who you are unconditionally, which I find translates more literally into regardless of circumstances. It's coming back to you being the light that you are again and 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 again. Casual influence. The Dalai Lama now lives in India, not in his original country. And he returns to his light regularly while in India. All right? Again and again. And he meets with world leaders and other people, and he gets yelled at and disagreed with, and he comes back to his light again and again and again and again and again. I really, really, really want to reinforce the effect your light has on your surroundings and your world is all side effect, not primary focus. The effect your light has on yourself, on your surroundings and your world is all side effect, not primary focus. Because if you're busy focusing on, I'm going to change my light so that I manifest a different world, you're not in you. You're out there. It's true that as I change my light, it changes how I affect my world. It changes what I magnetize in my world. All true, but all side effect. The focus is come back to my light in whatever practice works for you. Come back to my light, be my light, express my light, allow my light to shine, work it past all the parts of me that want to make it smaller, that want to constrict it, that want to confine it. Work it past all the parts of me to be my light, allow my light to shine, regardless of circumstances. I mean, it's true. If I'm standing in line somewhere, it's pretty common that if I notice the person ringing up somebody's groceries, for example, if I'm more than two people back in line, it's pretty common if they're grumpy when I get there, it's pretty common that they're not grumpy by the time I'm the one in front of them. But that side effect, it is a reminder to me that if they're still grumpy when I get in front of them, I've got some sweeping to do in my own thought process because I am not being my light. But at the same time, it's not, if they're still grumpy when I got in front of them, it's my fault, my cause, my thing to fix. It's just a reminder to check whether I'm indulgently staying in a grumpy of my own and therefore didn't have that influence. It's just a reminder. It's all side effect. The key part of why we're here is removing the shadows in our own light to allow our own light to shine, to add to all the other light. But I'll tell you the reason why the planet is in such a fabulous experience of dualism and separation is because the unifiedness of the light is moving this energy frequency up. And that's a whole long conversation. But everything outside of us is side effect, honeys. If my clients heal, it's side effect. If my clients don't heal, well, if my clients heal, it's side effect. And I look really deeply to make sure I'm bringing as much light to my work as I can rather than getting lost in my work. If my clients don't heal, it's side effect. And I bring as much focus as I can to see if I'm bringing as much light as I can to my work and not getting lost in the work. If my book overbooks, and Terry's like frantically sending me messages, if there's 8 more clients, where are we going to put them? I come back to my light. If my book underbooks, I come back to my light. If I order food and it's late, I come back to my light. If my tech breaks down and the support team doesn't know how to fix it, I come back to my light, or I get reminded. It's all side effect of we come back to our light, but it is a good reminder that, yeah, everybody's depending on us to come back to our light, and nobody's dependent on us to come back to our light except us.
I think that's such an important adjustment there, because I can see how there's a principle there that matters and is worth talking about, but there's also
and it's a side effect.
And it's a side effect because I could get gripped up in if I'm eating too many keto bars and those wrappers are going in the trash, or if I use too many bamboo paper towels, am I accidentally keeping the world in a state of global warming? And then I'm in clench and guilt and self-analysis instead of in light, naturally having these patterns shift and evolve, right? That's not a real example, just making that up, but
that's adding to the worry.
Mm.
That's not seeing the solution.
Mm.
And all things are dual. When you can take the dual nature of something, you will see the truth. If you can see both light and dark and you put them together, you're seeing the wholeness of things. I am a good person. I can be a bad person. I'm seeing myself completely.
I'm a wonderful, peaceful, gentle, loving person, and I notice I have a short list of people in my brain that if I was writing some science fiction movie, I would shoot them all.
There you go.
I notice that there is that part of me in my brain too, and I have to honor that, yep, everything I see in any human being I have in me, and I'm getting to continually to choose to come back to the parts of me, the light in me that I wish to express.
If you want less of that in the world, you want less psychopaths in the world, you have to deal with the one inside you. Seriously, you have to make the choice between that psychopath, whether it's in your imagination and you're just murdering people like crazy, or cutting them off or hoping they explode or whatever. It's like you have to deal with that within you if that's what you want to see less of in the world. There is no peace without that. And I like Joseph Campbell's very simple statement of follow your bliss. And I believe that can be an effortless path to growth and development. If we really just follow and move towards collectively and individually towards a world we want to live in, towards the world we want to imagine it, and we become the shining example of that, we'll face every dragon, we'll face every obstacle, we'll face every self that's been fragmented, we'll face all of our karma. It's when we kind of lock ourselves into patterns where we're not taking action, or where we're putting our, I just know people who are like, I'm one person, how could my vote matter? Things like that. When you marginalize yourself, or you make yourself small, or you stay in your head versus out there, like physically living into the person in the world that you want to live in. That's the mistake we make, is not continuing to be here for the experience. Like, get out of your head and into the real world and see, don't live in the imagination.
And there's a piece I want to add on the Joseph Campbell follow your bliss comment, because I've seen people go in a direction that I think is misunderstanding that. And I'll just say, I think it's misunderstanding that. I think if you go back a few months episodes, I think I've told consulting in a computer software company in Dallas, spiritual breakthrough stories on the show before. So go listen to all the shows. If I haven't, send me a note. I'll tell it again. but I was working in a crashing startup that was god-awful pressured and being abused. And the huge breakthrough I had was when, in the midst of that backdrop, I realized that I am a spiritual being on a spiritual life path, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, even if it's a padded wall orange cube. And what I did was I turned that horrible circumstance into being my own Zen retreat of, I'm going to come back to my energy every time this circumstance punches my buttons. I'm going to come back to my energy every time this circumstance punches my buttons. So I would rephrase the short version of follow your bliss. I would rephrase it to follow your bliss and or find your bliss while you do what you need to do. Because I've seen a lot of people decide that their job is hard and they think follow my bliss and they quit and they try to like go make a living with modeling clay. Fabulous. People make a living with modeling clay. How wonderful. And follow your bliss is not stop doing anything that pushes your buttons. It's refind your bliss in the middle of the things that push your buttons and build your ability to come back to that bliss, whether you're surrounded by beauty or lions in the Colosseum. Just to go all Christian for a moment. But only a moment, please.
I like this conversation about trusting the flow of our own life force, of the energy that calls us, and that which calls us forward in our own bliss, in our own happiness, can be trusted to be part of the same stream that leads to like that. It all works together if we can follow our own flow, and it becomes this conversation about life and that which pinches life off or squiggles life up. Like, what in us has gotten, in Scout words, dented or like tangled up, where we don't think that we can trust ourselves to be and flow and shine our light anymore. And that's where the work is, to heal and untangle. And that doing so, that flow contributes to a stream that can be trusted to carry us all along.
It is all there is. It is the point of the game. And it really starts to look like all of that stuff out there is the point of the game. And all of that stuff out there and what they did, what they made happen, they did it to me, they made me mad, blah, 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 blah. Yep. That whole fun dance of they.
There's a teacher I really like who talks about how you don't comb the hair of the person in the mirror to try and get the look of it to change, right? You comb your own hair, and you don't like brush the teeth of the mirror, right? You brush your own teeth. And
Hilarious.
yeah, it's great. And this, so I mean, I want to go back a little bit to talking about the themes that we were touching on, of the energies that we are seeing in the world, of the polarization and such, and but also weaving it into this conversation about not putting it on ourselves per se, to be reaching out into all of it and trying to fix it at the expense of our own light. Because something that I've been meditating on as I see all this is like, and let me know, Ginny and Scout, if there's any tweaks you'd make to this, but what I've been doing as I've looked out at this has been to see, like, let's take the women's rights issue, right? Like, wow, is there a place where I'm not allowing people full choice? Are there places where, like, I have any differentiation between equality between the masculine and the feminine? Or with the situation in Ukraine, I had been asking, where do I cross boundaries, and where do I let my boundaries be crossed? And is this a meaningful form of inquiry to work with these energies, or does it potentially get us lost in that gripped up self-analysis that just keeps us from doing our natural flow?
I think it's excellent. And don't get lost in the matrix. Reflect on, especially if it touches you, in any, like when you see those things, if it touches you in any way, then yes, it's a part of your growth, to understand and make peace with that, and to be a living amends. Whether that's a hyper focus, you see this a lot in businesses, like correcting, whether it's their board of directors from all being, like cis white males, to to having more of a diversified panel of people. We are very focused on that, and sometimes that is a living amends, is to just say, nope, don't care how qualified you are. I need more of a diverse voice in this place. But when you have the realization, it's not to like beat yourself up or try to undo the past. It's to carry it forward as recognition, and to walk that forward, just to say, oh, I realize, in some ways I've, been a part of, holding back a community, or looking at people in a marginalized way, or, anything. Any place that you can see that needs to grow in empathy and balance. And, if you were in that position, would you want to be treated this way? Then yeah, like that is the clearest way to see if you're out of alignment with what's happening.
Thinking it's like a moment of noticing, but then keep flowing. Like if we
Always.
use the mirror example, it's like you happen to walk past a mirror in your house, you look to the side and, my hair got all messy. Pull out a comb, brush it, and then keep whistling on with your day, rather than stopping and staring at that mirror and how could this happen? And this always happens. And and then you just stare at the mirror of your messy hair and you blame yourself for, and blah blah blah, right? It's like, no, comb it, notice it, thank you mirror, and then keep going with your flow positively from there.
I just finished a book recently called Look Me in the Eye. I highly recommend it. Interesting book. Written by a gentleman who identifies as Aspergian, or with Asperger's. And it brings me around to the thought, and I've lost her last name right now, but Greta, last initial T.
Thornburg?
Thank you, Thornburg, exactly, who is also identifies as on the spectrum. And one of the pieces I see about her is that her spectrumness allows her to not have the same social reshaping that many of us live inside of, where we won't say the harsh thing, or we'll look away from the harsh thing, or we won't speak the harsh thing harshly. And she's, to my observation, we've not met, I've not talked with her. I would love to have that happen. If any of y'all can hook it up, I'd love to interview her. But when I observe her, when what I see of her is that she stays fully in her light, even while she's fully expressing a universal outrage at stuff that's ugly. She stays fully in her light, even while having a whole lot of feedback of, how dare you say that? Don't you dare say that. We'll be mad if you say that. And she stays fully in her light, and yet at the same time is willing to look fully into things that she observes as being devastating and urgent, and being pushed away and being ignored by everybody who's making nice. Now, I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and be aggressive. I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and make a campaign in the world. But I am saying that every single one of us that's willing to be in our light and see the things that would push our buttons and have us collapse or crump or go angry or clench up, to be in our light while we witness what would make us otherwise clench, to be in our light while we witness the internal judgment that would make us otherwise go small, to be in our light while we witness the mind chatter that would critique or say we're separate, or that we're this or that, or everybody else is this or that or whatever. Coming back and allowing and giving ourselves permission to be our aliveness and be in our aliveness and be our light is the point of the game. You didn't bring a spirit into the meat. Sorry, I can't get away from that thought, with incarnate being so much like carne asada. You didn't bring a spirit into the meat in order to be overloaded by the concepts of meatness. You brought a spirit into the meat to elevate the frequency of everything around. By doing that, by being that, by coming back and being your light. So there. Run with that, Jenny.
I'm going to kind of take it in another direction. because, with all the things that are stirring around right now, is that nothing can ever take away your choice. That's the point I want to make. Nothing can ever take away your choice. Now, we've agreed, and Thomas Hobbes wrote a book in the like mid 1600s called Leviathan, which is a lot about our like political structure now. And it was about, as man, we could find peace if we hand over our source of power and control and what is right and wrong to a greater source, which Thomas Hobbes in this book writes is basically government. So we're seeing that humanity has also infiltrated that. Same as it's infiltrated the church, same as our duality has kind of permeated all parts of higher level consciousness. That really what it boils down to on this planet is that we are self-governed. Each individually are self-governed.
Nice.
And that absolutely nothing can take away that choice. And so for, the women or transgendered people, non-binary people who are watching this who are fearful of their rights, is to really recognize that at the base level of this, that there is nothing that can ever take away your choice. Ever. So hold on to that in spite of what kind of gets kicked up in this collective. And I think to take away the Leviathan, to not be looking at, a government to kind of dictate what is right and what is wrong for us. That represents our social consciousness, and our social consciousness has evolved. And so, we need for our Leviathan, our laws, to kind of catch up to this place of equality that we are trying to, push into. And I think Chris could probably speak to my generation. We're Pluto in Libra, so we're all about like correcting these laws and like real as a collective, generationally focused on that, but at the end of the day, there's absolutely nothing that could change that very basic principle that we have choice over our thoughts, we have choice over our bodies, we have choice over how we create the world we live in.
Four walls do not a prison make.
Right.
And I do want to remind everybody, we're here in the midst of a huge transformation of an energetic system that has been called Earth and has been School of Earth. We're here in the midst of a huge energetic transformation of this reality system, this learning place. It's not the only learning place in the everywhere or the nowhere. It's not the only learning place in the nowhere. It's just this learning place in this particular universe, in this particular everywhere. We're here, and we chose to be here for this moment when everything is tumultuous. And you chose to be here for this moment when everything is tumultuous for you to retrain, rebuild your ability to remember that you are your light, you are your choices, and that's why you're here.
Pretty good place to call it a day for this month. I'm just wowed by how cool this whole conversation went, just flowing with each other, and had a great time. And thank you everybody for coming. I'm Christopher Mitchell. You can hit me up at unlimitedastrology@gmail.com if you want to inquire about readings, figure out how these eclipses or the upcoming Mercury retrograde is working in your chart. Get at me, and I'll let Ginny and Scout talk a little bit about what they do, and we'll see you next first Friday in June at noon. Thanks.
I'm Reverend Ginny Brown. You can do individual, couples, family-based sessions or communicate with your cat, dog, and lizard. Reach me at the email and website below.
And I'm Scout like Pathfinder, Bartlett like Pears. My email is right there under my chin. Or there's a shortcut, notscott.com. I do a regular radio show that broadcasts in the San Francisco Bay Area Monday and Wednesday mornings at 6, but we archive it up on our website. There's hundreds of hours there. That's my contribution, my tithing to the universe, all available to you for free. Go ahead, download, listen, give it a shot. I do individual sessions as well. I'll send you to Ginny for cats, dogs, and lizards. But I do want to remind every single one of you that, well, we'll ask you two favors, really. First one, treat yourself as a loved one. You truly are. And then just take a moment to notice that no matter where on earth you are, it's a perfect day for you to have a great day on purpose. Bye.